good morning, fifth grade. I hope you guys had a great sleep and you're ready for another fantastic day in history. Okay, this is not like far history. This is history that I lived through. This is history that I was not involved with, but that I saw on the news at night, that I talked about with my family and my husband. And it's very interesting to think of it as history, being as 2009, 11, 12. But even yesterday is history, right? Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Obama's domestic policies, or affairs, actually, not policies. So affairs are things that occur, and domestic just means that it happened in your country. So remember, before the last, yesterday and Thursday, we were discussing foreign things that happened, which means things in other countries that are not ours during Obama's presidency. So that's what we're doing today, except now we're looking at domestic affairs, which means the stuff that was happening in our country. All right? So our big points today are going to be gun violence, racial issues, and the election of Obama versus Mitt Romney. Okay? So that's what we're doing. Fun stuff. I did attach a couple videos, and as I go through, I'll tell you which videos I did attach. All right? Are you ready? And of course, I have my handy dandy notes. All right, here we go. So, gun violence was an issue because, again, remember, we all have sinful nature. And if we don't have the Lord and we're relying on Him and talking with Him, we can do some pretty awful things to each other. And that's what happened in the early 2000s, well, I guess the mid 2000s, with guns. Okay. So a lot of times when gun violence happens, the first thing people say is we need to have more gun laws. Okay. There's a few issues with having more gun laws. One, we have tons of gun laws already. Okay. Bad guys aren't supposed to have guns, but guess what? Bad guys have guns. In some of these cases, the guns were stolen from other people who had guns, who were allowed to have guns. Gun control is also not looking at the right thing. Okay, so a gun never jumps up on its own and shoots somebody. There has to be a person holding it and a person shooting it. Okay, so that's an issue. So again, your worldview affects you on thinking of how do we fix this gun violence problem. If your worldview is a biblical worldview and you know people are all sinful, then you're going to go to the people and say, how do we help people to, first to know Jesus, because that's the biggest thing. If they know Jesus, all this would stop. But also, how do we help people to pick different ways of dealing with anger, frustration, mental illness, which you're going to find most of these guys were mentally ill. But if you go shoot people, aren't you mentally ill? Anyway, that's another topic. But if you believe that all people are good, and then you're going to just want to get rid of guns. Okay. A lot of countries have gotten rid of guns. And I know England, they've had to ban knives now. Because without the guns, people weren't shooting people. Well, okay, some people were, but most people weren't shooting people. They were now like stabbing them. So they've outlawed knives. I think it was 2 years ago or last year. I can't remember now because time flies. And so it's not the weaponry that's the problem. It's the sinful heart of people that is the problem. And the best way to deal with a sinful heart is to tell them about God and pray that they accept Jesus. Okay? So, but that's not where most people go, okay? Again, it depends on your worldview. Do you have a biblical worldview that we're all sinners, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, which it says in the Bible? Or are you of the opinion that we're all born good and then bad things happen to us and we become bad? okay, which is definitely not what the Bible teaches us. And that is how you're going to deal with all these things, your biblical worldview, okay? All right, shootings. So in 2009, two big shootings occurred, okay, with Islamic people who had been converted. They were here in the United States. They had been converted to Islam, and they both got very upset and decided they were going to go ahead and they were going to shoot up military people because they were upset that the military was in Iraq and Afghanistan, and that they were fighting against Muslim people. And so the one person, I didn't put any other names down, sorry, went in June of 2009, and he shot up a recruiting office in Little Rock. So a recruiting office is where people go if they're thinking about joining the military. They go after they've decided to join the military, and they sign papers say, yes, I want to join the military. So it's not like a military base. So it's not like, people with guns and things. These are just people who are deciding to join the military, or talking to somebody about joining the military, or taking a little, writing their name on their paper. Yes, I'm going to go and I'm going to join the military. All right. Thankfully, praise God, that not very many people died there. So one person was killed and one person was injured. So he didn't do a lot of damage, thankfully. I cannot say the same for the next shooting. Okay. In November of 2009, a person in the military, let me see if I wrote his name down. Nope. They just say he was an army major. Okay, so he was an army major. He had also converted to Islam. And what happened is he went onto Fort Hood, which is a very, very, very big army base in Texas, in Fort Hood, Texas. And he started shooting people. Okay. They were very confused by the fact that the guy is in U.S. uniform. Some people knew him that he was shooting, and it was a mess. And unfortunately, he ended up killing 13 people and wounding a lot of people. This was a tragedy by all accounts. And so that was in 2009. Then in 2011, Gabby Gifford, she is a member of Congress. She is a representative of Arizona. And what happened is she was at a rally. And at that rally, some crazy man came in with a gun and started shooting up the place. Okay? So Gabby Gifford was hit. People think she was the target. Not sure. And she was shot that day. She survives, okay? And so I've actually attached a video here of Gabby Gifford coming back into Congress, onto the floor of House of Representatives, and it's very emotional, well, maybe not for you because you guys didn't live through it, but it's very neat to see her come back after being shot, and she really had to go through a lot of therapy and stuff, and it is really neat to see that she was able to return to Congress. No matter what your issue is with people, shooting them is not usually what you should be doing. Now, if some really horrible man or person's coming in your house to do you and your family harm, well, that's something different. But to go out somewhere and just shoot up people is not a good way to deal with any issues that you have going on. Okay? Or if you go into the military and you go to war, well, then shooting people kind of happens then too. Okay? So please watch the video. Let's see. I wanted to give you the information about what happened at the meeting. So the man killed 6 people and wounded many others. They never tell you. And so the video is an ABC News broadcast. It's just a couple minutes. And it just shows you and tells you what happened and that she was back. Okay? All right. Next year, July of 2012, this another crazy man goes into a movie theater in Colorado and shoots up the place there. He was dressed up and stuff. So if you ever wondered how come I can't go to the movies dressed up, because they used to do that when like Marvel movies would come out, people would come dressed up. So he came dressed up as a Marvel character. I think he was the Joker. I can't remember. And then he shot up the place. And so that's why they stopped allowing people to dress up or wear masks or bring in bags, right? You can't really bring in bags. You can only bring in like your purse if you're a girl. And that all came from this. Okay. So you'll discover when tragedy strikes, our world changes and it never goes back to the way it used to be. Okay. All right. And then in December of 2012, another crazy man gets very upset with his mom, steals her gun, kills her, and then goes to the school she worked at called Sandy Hook and shoots the place up. Super sad. It was like right before Christmas. Several students died. I don't know if the book told you how many because I didn't actually look it up. No. So this is the super sad case because the boy was mentally ill. His mom had gotten him committed to a hospital, but you can only do that for 72 hours, which is 3 days. There's new laws that were passed in the later 80s that said you couldn't just put people in mental health places and leave them there because that's what they used to do. So if they decided that you had a mental health issue that they couldn't fix, hang on a minute. Sorry. That they would put you in a mental health facility and leave you there until you were okay. And if you weren't okay, then they won't let you out. But all the laws changed, and now you can't do that. If you can't for sure say they're a danger to themselves or others, you have to let them go. And so she had called the police. She had put him in a mental health place. She had spent more time with him, trying to get him interested, trying to get herself interested in things he liked. And so everybody knew that he had some issues with his mind. But nobody really would do anything to help him. And unfortunately, that's what happened. Okay. Now, again, please don't think wrong things. I am not saying everybody who decides to join Islam is going to shoot people. I'm not saying anybody who likes to dress up in costumes for like movies and things is going to shoot people. I'm not saying that everybody who has a mental problem is going to shoot people. That is not the case. What I am saying is we are all sinful, and if we don't turn our lives over to Jesus, we can get wallowed in that sin, and bad things can happen. Okay, that's what I'm saying. That does not mean also that everybody who doesn't accept Jesus is going to shoot people, because that's not true either. Okay, you can't make big, broad statements like that because it's wrong. It gets into prejudice and all kinds of things. So every time one of these attacks would happen, their solution would be gun control. Now realize we have a lot of gun laws on the books. So remember back in 1981 when President Reagan was, somebody tried to assassinate him and they shot his press secretary, Jim Brady. Sorry, my nose is like so itchy today. They made Brady laws. That's what they were called. They were named after Brady, and they were called Brady laws, and you had to do a background check to give anybody a weapon, and you had to wait 24 hours to get a handgun because they found out Hinckley, hang on, I gotta go off again. They found out that Hinckley had gotten a handgun, and then the day he went to shoot Reagan, or the day before, I can't remember now, and they figured maybe, again, looking at people being good and things being bad, Maybe if Hinckley would have had to wait to get the gun, he would have calmed down and realized that this wasn't okay. But remember, Hinckley was one of those people that had mental issues. He was trying to get the attention of Judy Foster, who was an actress and didn't know him from anybody, by shooting the president. So for him, I don't think 24 hours would have made a difference, but maybe for others it does. Also, again, remember we talked about how if you are mentally ill and they don't think for sure you're a danger to anybody, then they're going to put you back out on the street. And if you can't afford medical care or whatever, it's very hard to get medical care. Actually, when I went to school, I was a lot older because I kind of did everything a little bit different. And one of my friends in school, in college, her son had mental illnesses. And she tried everything to get him help. And it's very, very difficult to get help. He would like have this explosive temper, and he would hurt his mom, and he'd hurt his siblings. And she'd call the police, and sometimes they'd take him away, and sometimes they wouldn't. So it was a very big stressor for her, I know. And that was 2006 that she was dealing with that stuff. 2006, 2007, 2008. And so that was a really big problem for her, being able to get her son help for his mental illnesses. Okay? So let's move from guns to racial issues. During the first term of Obama's presidency, there were a lot of racial issues. So there have been racial issues in the past, ever since the Civil War, ever since before the Civil War. Again, biblical worldview. So why would you be against your own people? Okay? God created every single person in his image. We all come from Adam and Eve. Everybody. Okay? We're not different races. See, I did quotes, races. We are all the same. Some people have more melanin. Some people have darker hair. Some people are taller. Some people are shorter. But God made us all. We are all in his image. So to be against somebody because of the way they look or how much melanin they have in their body is ridiculous and foolishness. Because God made us all and we are all the same. Okay? So it's just kind of crazy to me that people even think that way. But I grew up on that. I grew up with that. Not my dad and my mom, but my uncles and aunts and grandparents were all prejudiced. Crazy. They would say crazy things, and I'd sit there and look at them and go, what are you talking about? You are nuts. So being prejudiced against somebody because of their skin color is silly. Don't do it. Judge people, well, okay. You should like or dislike a person based on their character, all right? Martin Luther King Jr. gave a fantastic speech, I Have a Dream, and in that speech, the most quoted famous line in there is, I have a dream that one day my sons and daughters will be judged on the content of their character and not on the color of their skin. Very powerful statement. So that's what you should be doing. Content of character, not color of skin. There's people who do bad things and people who do good things in all races. Okay? Again, we're not one race. I don't even like to use that. In all different levels of melanin. I don't even know how to say it because it's just foolish. Foolish, foolish, foolish. All right, so these are the big ones from Obama's administration. And as you see, one of them is in 2014. So guess who wins the 2012 election? All right. So according to the book, the people who are discriminated against the most are African Americans because they are imprisoned more. They have more single families. and they have more low wages. And African Americans blame that on the fact that they are prejudiced against, that people have a bigot or a bias against them. Okay, a bigotry or a bias. Um, so a lot of people said, hey, okay, people like me, people who aren't prejudiced, said, hey, look, America is so much better than they were, say, in the early 60s. Excuse me, when Martin Luther King Jr. was marching for civil rights. It's so much better because look, we have elected an African American president. Okay, his dad was from Kenya. Okay, and so other people didn't see it that way. Other people looked at it and said, "Well, yeah, but." It's like, oh, okay. So in 2009, President Obama, sorry, tried to calm. That's the problem with notes. Sometimes you don't have all the words, you just have keywords, which is what you're supposed to have, and then you forget to say certain words. So sorry about that. Okay, so 2009, President Obama tried to calm the country when a Harvard professor named Professor Gates gets arrested in his house. So this is what happened. And, think about it, okay? Don't just assume things, think about it. That's called critical thinking. If people are thinking critically, a lot of stuff that occurs wouldn't occur, all right? So, Professor Gates, he went on vacation. He is a professor at Harvard. He lived in a nice neighborhood because professors at Harvard are pretty well paid. So, he went away on vacation. When he got back, he couldn't get into his front door. So it wouldn't work for whatever reason. He had the key and everything, but it just won't work. So him and his buddy break into his house. A neighbor sees them breaking in and calls the police. Okay? So when the police arrive, they start questioning Professor Gates, and Professor Gates is not cooperative. Okay? So the police end up arresting him for disorderly conduct and refusing to cooperate with police instructions. Yes, that is against the law because it's for your safety. If the police say put your hands up and they think you have a weapon and you don't put your hands up, they could end up shooting you by mistake because you didn't put your hands up. So that's why it's against the law. So that's what he got arrested for. So they asked him questions. He got upset about the questions, and he wouldn't answer the questions, and then it escalated until he got arrested. He said that the reason the police were called and he was being harassed was because he was black. The police said, no, it's because he wouldn't cooperate. He was seen breaking into the house, and we just asked him to prove he lived there, and he got very uncooperative and angry and started not, doing what we needed him to do. So President Obama decides to call both men, Professor Gates and the arresting officer, to Washington, D.C., to the White House to have a sit down and a talk. So that's what happened, and the book doesn't say what the result was, and I don't actually remember what the result of that was. But there you have it. Okay? In 2012, again, gun violence. Okay? So in 2012, a 17-year-old boy, is walking around this neighborhood. His name was Trayvon Martin. This neighborhood had a lot of crime in it at that time in history, and so they had something called a neighborhood watch. So people walked around to kind of keep eyes on things, and if there were people they didn't know, they'd just say, hey, where are you going? What you doing? Kind of like when we're at school, right? If we see someone walking around, we don't know who they are, I always say, oh, hey, can I help you? Because maybe they're there and they're supposed to be there and they're just lost, or maybe they're not supposed to be there and they're just causing trouble. So that's kind of what happened. Well, depending on who you listen to, things escalated. So one side of the story is that Trayvon Martin was being followed by a man named Mark Zimmerman, and he was being followed simply because he was black. Okay? And Trayvon got upset about that, and there was a fight, and then Mark Zimmerman pulled out his gun and shot him. Okay? The other side of the story is that Mark Zimmerman saw Trayvon Martin walking in the neighborhood, did not recognize him, asked him questions. He got upset. He attacked Mark Zimmerman, grabbed his head, and was banging it into the concrete. And so, in self-defense, in fear for his life, he pulled out his gun and shot him. No idea. I wasn't there. I have no idea. So, it went to trial, and the jury found Mark Zimmerman not guilty because he was acting in self-defense, which made a lot of people upset because they said Trayvon Martin was a good kid and wouldn't have acted that way, and that he was only shot because he was black. Okay? Again, the only, I don't know. Who do you believe? I don't know. Are both things possible? Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean one is true and one isn't. And who knows? One thing the police said, though, is that Mark Zimmerman, and I agree, acted irresponsibly. If he thought there was an intruder in the neighborhood, and this is how all neighborhood watchers are trained, they're supposed to go call the police because the police are trained. The police know how to do these things, and often, most of the time, nobody gets hurt. Okay, you'll see that's not true down here, but that's what happens. Mostly nobody gets hurt. So Mark Zimmerman, if nothing else, acted irresponsibly. He did. Okay? All right. In 2014, a man named Michael Brown is pulled over by a police officer. He's like walking in a neighborhood. And the police officer calls him over, so it's not like really pulled over. And wants to question him because a drugstore was just robbed. And Michael Brown fits the description of the thief. So he wants to talk to him. So again, actually there's some footage of this. Michael Brown doesn't want to talk to him. I was going to say, again, it's two sides of a story, which it is, but there's video. And so, according to the police officer, Michael Brown starts assaulting the police officer and going for his gun. And so, Darren Wilson pulls out his gun, and, gets a hold of his gun back from Michael Brown, and shoots him. Okay, this occurs in a city called Ferguson, Missouri. Hang on, I'll be back again. My nose is just crazy this morning. So sorry. Okay, whew, so sorry. All right, so Michael Brown is shot and killed. Michael Brown is 18 years old. And Michael Brown wasn't armed. He didn't have his own gun. According to the police officer, he was trying to take his gun. And so the people get very upset, and they talk about, see, this is just like Trayvon Martin. This is just like Professor Gates. This is issues. This is discrimination against black people. We want an investigation. The police are like, whoa, hang on. He was the thief, and he was attacking the guy, and they got like a little video or something. And they're like, no, it's because he was black. If he wasn't black, the cop wouldn't have just shot him. So the fight goes back and forth, and eventually they decide not to indict him, which then sets off a long time of riots. I don't remember how long it is, so I don't want to say, but it was night after night after night after night. So all of the people around, well, okay, not all, but several people, lots of groups of people were rioting, which means they were setting police cars on fire. They were hurting people. They were burning down buildings. They were looting, which means you're going into businesses and stealing everything that there is. Looting is different because it's a whole group of people that go in at a time that is of unrest, and they steal everything. So like when a hurricane comes through, there's looters that come in and take things out of people's houses. Okay, so it's different than being a thief. You're kind of on your own, or maybe you and your couple buddies. Looting is more like a mob thing that goes on, and they go in and steal. So there was a lot of looting. There was a lot of burning of things. I do have attached a video. It's a shorter video of CNN reporters on the streets of Ferguson, Missouri. It shows you the peaceful protest at the beginning, which then maybe it's a different group of people, I don't know. The rioting occurs and the burning of buildings and cars, and they even throw things at the reporters, which you'll see if you watch the whole thing. It's mayhem. It really is. And it went on for days and days. And President Obama came out and said, hey, it's fine to protest because protesting is actually a guaranteed right in our Constitution, but it's not okay to turn violent, which is what it was. You can go out and you can hold signs and you can say, I think this is wrong. I think, Michael Brown being shot is wrong. I think white cops shooting people is wrong. You can do all that. When it becomes illegal is when you start hurting people or destroying things, which is what happened in this case, unfortunately. Okay. All right. Like I said, they were very upset because the officer wasn't put in jail. Weeks. Yes. It was weeks of violence. It was just sad. The whole thing was sad. So both of these cases divided the nation. Okay. Both of these cases pitted races against each other, which again is crazy because we are all the same race, all created by God in His image. We all came from Adam and Eve. Hello. But it did. So African American people said white people were horrible. White people said, but wait, that guy was a criminal. And they said, but he was, you're just saying that because he's black. And they're like, no, I'm not. And so it was just like this whole thing that has grown into this craziness that now they say like every white person is prejudiced. You just don't know it. It just like ballooned into this, what I consider madness. And it all came from these two cases were really like the turning point for those things. Okay? It's very sad because again, God created us all. If you think because of the amount of melanin in your body or in somebody else's body, you're better or worse or whatever than anybody else, you are very wrong. Go check your Bible, guys. God created us all in His image. Okay? All right, let's look at the 2012 election. Woohoo! So, 2012. I forgot a zero, sorry. 2012 election. Let me see what our time is. Whoop. All right. So, the 2012 election, of course, President Obama is running again because he only finished his first term. Remember, you're allowed by law to do 2 terms. So, Obama was the Democratic candidate. Now I'm going to tell you about the Republican candidate. His name was Mitt Romney. Okay, Mitt Romney is a Mormon, which was concerning to some people, if they wanted a Mormon in the White House or not. Just to give you background, when John F. Kennedy was running, he's a Catholic, and people were concerned about that. Would John F. Kennedy really be running the country, or would the Pope? Okay, so this is not the first time there's been concern about someone's religion and if they should be president or not. I'll leave you to decide those things. All right. So Romney was a businessman. Okay, he was a successful businessman. That means that he made money in his business. That's what a successful businessman is. He was also the governor of Massachusetts. So when he came into Massachusetts, they had something called the Big Dig, which I know I talked to you about before. A lot like the rail. There was a lot of corruption, a lot of money being taken. And Mitt Romney came in and he cleaned that all up. And he finally got the tunnel to Logan Airport finished. Unfortunately for him, in that finishing of the tunnel, a woman was driving through it and a chunk of the ceiling fell off onto her car and killed her. So then there had to be more investigations. He was also able to lower taxes in Massachusetts before Romney. The joke was it was called Taxachusetts. Okay, so he was able to do that. So he had some success as a governor, and realized Romney is a Republican, and Massachusetts, I'm telling you, is Democrat, Democrat, Democrat. So it was even amazing that as a Republican, he was able to be the governor of Massachusetts. And he did well with that. However, on the national level, he didn't do so well. So in 2012, Obama is elected as the president a second term. Mitt Romney is not. Okay, and so there's 4 more years of Obama, and the Congress, see, it's in the book, the Congress picked up some seats, but the Republicans stayed in power. Oh, yeah, yeah. And now I figured out how that would work. Because remember, when they're trying to get the health care passed, they didn't have enough people in Congress to stop anything Obama wanted to do. But Congress is elected every 2 years, and the president's only elected every 4 years. So they did lose some seats, but the Republicans kept control of the House, um, but not the Senate. And President Obama, a Democrat, was reelected. Okay, and that's where we're stopping today. So I will see you later. Bye, guys.